Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone, welcome along to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. We are looking ahead to quarter-final weekend in the Football Championship with Enda McGinley and Tomás O'Shea joining myself and Rory. Couple of cracking games to look forward to, lads. So let's go through them sort of chronologically over the weekend. I think Donegal and Monaghan is a funny one, and given their rivalry in the Ulster Championship and the sense that people have that Monaghan are getting closer to Donegal, I was looking back on the last 4 meetings, and Donegal still have felt like they have had control in all of those games. I know there was only 2 points in their game in Clonus, but it still felt like Donegal were in control. And I wonder, how is it that Monaghan can manage to turn this on the head, where they get some control and actually manage to push this one where they get a win? Because it has been 10 years and people sometimes maybe forget that as well.
Yeah, it's amazing how those sort of signal wins that a team can have over another can sort of count for much more than what it is if you actually add up all their competitive meetings together. Certainly Donegal have had the upper hand, but I think Monaghan are close. And the fact that Monaghan has beaten them, like even from, I suppose, my own point of view, Tyrone have had so few wins over Donegal that any win, particularly in the Jim McGuinness, under a Jim McGuinness managed side, really, really counts and means they don't have that hoodoo over you. So Monaghan will have belief. I would also suggest Donegal at that last meeting, Donegal were probably playing better than I think they are now. Now, they were played very well in that sort of, particularly the third quarter against Louth. But I don't think Donegal have fully hit their heights yet. Again, we're going to say this repeatedly over this show. It is all about what level they can hit come quarterfinal, because you get the distinct impression that for a lot of these teams, they've been trying to train their horses so that they are peaked for now, for Croke Park in July, and it's time to fly, or in end of June, but it's time to fly now. So how much Donegal have been holding back? We know they've had a tough run. They've very, very much publicised they've had a tough run. I don't fully buy into that. But for me, Monaghan have played some serious football this year. And yes, they got beat by Donegal previously, but I think Monaghan have played better football since then. And I think Donegal have struggled a wee bit to hit their form that maybe they were hitting at earlier times of the year.
Just on Enda's point, Tomás, about the sideshow that's going on with Donegal, with all the talk and the very public airing of their grievances, is there something in that?
It's probably tough. There's no doubt that they have. I think it's the whole thing, Jacqui. I think you're bringing into the new setup, the new structure, the provincial championship, the intensity of the Ulster Championship. Then you go into a 4-group or a 4-team group, and then you play in All-Ireland. So whatever team comes from the north on whatever year, you can be guaranteed that they have a seriously hard path no matter what. The travel, I think it'll be a different team next year, and I think it'll be the same story. I think it'll be very, very hard and very tough and very condensed. Look, I wouldn't. Is Jim McGuinness telling his players on a weekly basis or on a nightly basis above in Donegal that they're fatigued and that they're not going to be right? He's not. I'd say he's telling one thing and he's right. I there is an argument there, and I fully get that, and I fully take that. Louth landed up the last day and asked for a half an hour, asked for 15 minutes extra, and they didn't get it. I don't know who didn't give it to them or didn't sanction, but that was wrong as well. And that's a smaller. Galway look at other teams, Jacqui. Galway have had tough trips. Cavan had to play a game after 6 days. There's situations like that all over the place. Whatever team is successful out of Ulster is going to have a tough battle, and it's always Enda has gone through it, and even through the back door Enda would have gone through it. So it's always there. It's just the intensity of the Ulster Championship, and I think, no, I get it. I totally get it, and it is difficult on them. But at the same time, you could have said and predicted what was going to happen with their fixtures from the very start of the year if they were going to be successful, which they have been. So they knew what was coming down the road as well, you know?
Yeah, and all of that is fair, Rory, except that they might run out of road, because if they are fatigued, which is highly possible, 6-day turnaround, given some other teams have been sitting back and waiting, is actually difficult in a professional era, not to mind in an amateur game. And I do think on that side of it, maybe there is a point.
Yeah, it's very tough. I think it is tough on them. And I think he has a point. And I think, look, the lads know full well what goes on within an intercounty dressing room. So the chances are the message inside is very different to the external one. They're defending Ulster champions. Why were they even in a preliminary first round game in Ulster? Like, surely in that scenario, they should be at least given a bye to a quarter final. And they'll be defending Ulster champions again next year, regardless of what happens. But no, I don't think, look, if they're beaten on Saturday, they won't be making any excuses. Very interesting. I could see this game easily going to extra time, Jacqui, and they'll be tested then, surely, won't they?
Yeah.
I think it's
go on.
I definitely think it's one of the there's four obvious winners people will point to this weekend, and I would nudge towards Donegal. I've seen them, but I do definitely think the way Monaghan are set up, and I think the modern game, and I'll have an argument about it with the Armagh game in particular, the middle eight is so vital. It's always vital, but Monaghan's middle eight are playing extremely well, and they're very adaptable, and I just feel that there's this thing in the north, and again in them would, I feel Monaghan don't really fear Donegal, and I think other teams would be affected by the fact that they're facing Donegal, but I don't think it will impact Monaghan. I'd give Monaghan a huge chance against Donegal, even though I'd probably tip Donegal. I would give Monaghan a great chance. I think they have a good bench coming off the pitches or onto the pitch. McCarron is always introduced, he's held back, so they have an impact there as well. So I think it's a very, very tricky one for Donegal.
It's such a, like, Tomás, you know, like, Monaghan have to make that statement win. They have to decide that they come to Croke Park and are equals and are capable of winning the whole thing. Do Monaghan truly believe they can win the whole thing? I don't know. I genuinely would doubt that, to be honest. And I think that's a critical weakness. Donegal will come in, and absolutely what's been said publicly is not what's been said the other way. It'll be very much the reverse. I think they can manage it, but like, my surprise with Donegal, you were talking about that middle third. Donegal have the tools to spread those big men right across, and yet when they need a kick out, there is only one man they continually and repeatedly go to, and that's Michael Murphy. And Tyrone sort of cancelled that out and ended up with the winning of the game in their hands with that. Monaghan will know that as an Ulster team, they will know well how to target that. So Donegal have to play better than what they have, but Monaghan have to have a belief, not just that they can win this game, but they can win the whole thing. I think that they have to show up to Croke Park, and they give out about the sort of the condescending talk and everybody saying, God, they punch so well for the size of them, etc., etc. But they have to come down, and they have the footballers. They've played some of the best football in the country quite consistently all year. They have been really consistent, probably more consistent than some of the other top teams, albeit at a slightly easier group, and they were Division 2. This is their chance. Like, I would imagine the message in the Monaghan camp is, okay, we've been playing good stuff. We've been playing Tier 2 team or Division 2 teams primarily. We now have to show up against the big boys and take down a Division 1 team. Are we ready for that or not?
Yeah.
Do you think the same question is there about Tyrone and Enda? Because I wonder, in that group, do they feel we're now good enough to win it? And if they have to take out a Dublin, let's say, this weekend, is that the same milestone?
Yeah, and there's the irony. I don't think Tyrone has played any better football than Monaghan. With the exception, I don't think Monaghan has produced a performance of the level that Tyrone did against Donegal. But overall the season, I think Monaghan has been a more impressive team than Tyrone. But I bet you a whole lot of money in that Tyrone camp. They believe there's an All-Ireland there that they can win. Do they think they're playing well at the minute? No. But they will be one of those teams that arrive into Croke Park, look around, see their opponents and think, yep, we fancy a bit of this. But they have to show up, Jacqui. My gosh, you talk, like, it's not Jekyll and Hyde. It's been Jekyll, and then an occasional Hyde. Like, they have been poor generally, with an occasional brilliant performance. If they turn up and are at it, I think they have a team and ability that can match any team that's there. And Croke Park should suit them, but Brian Kennedy's going to be massive. His fitness is absolutely key. His battle with O'Coffey Byrne is going to be massive. O'Coffey Byrne, for me, I seen him against Coola and I sort of knew the threat he was. He took a wee bit of time to settle to county football, and everybody's obviously talking about Brian Howard. He's a very obvious strength for Dublin in the middle third. But O'Coffey Byrne is rapidly becoming an absolute go-to man, and he's a massive, again, going back to Tomás's point about the middle third, that ability to win ball in the middle third and have that big target for when you're under the cosh is massive.
How do you keep the ball away from him, Enda? Like, I mean, do you just basically, you know, drag him to one side and kick to the other? Is it that simple?
Yeah, absolutely. But Dublin obviously have other ball winners, but I'm more thinking on Dublin's kick out. Like, so key for a team to try to win these games is to try and get a period of dominance where you do a bit of damage and winning. So going after the Dublin kick out, if you can't go after the Dublin kick out and your confidence of being able to nail, which is where teams are impacted by Donegal, your confidence of being able to shut down a pattern kick out, particularly the long range ones, means you're more likely to drop off the short. And then you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And if they're able to get away consistently their kickouts, it just gives them such a platform, because they will win a certain percentage of your own. Then the top teams, you're just giving them a feast of ball. So you have to want, to the very least, put the opposition kick out under some degree of pressure. And he's a brilliant foil for them whenever that screw starts to turn.
Does feel, Tomás, like that's the key, you know, right there, like you've already identified in that middle third. Shut him down and vice versa with Brian Kennedy, and there's the game. There's the match winner.
Yeah, but I think Dublin are a team a lot more so than other teams in the championship. Were kind of not slow to get to grips with the rules, but I think the Meath game exposed they had a kick out for years. The whole country tried to copy, and goalies started changing up because of what Cluxon did inside and goal. And then suddenly that's taken away from the full control of Cluxon's ability to pick out, because teams are basically invited to push on and to press up. And they were exposed against Meath, and their ability against Armagh, their kicking was exposed. They created a number of chances. And this is why you'd say Dublin are still at it. Like, they improved no end on their kick out since. Excellent since. And O'Coffey Byrne has been central to that. But other players like Brian Howard, and I tell you what's being underestimated altogether is a team's ability to scrap and dog under breaking ball on both sides of kickouts. And another thing that's underestimated is and what will come to roost, like Tyrone will show up. I've no doubt that Tyrone will show up at the weekend. But Dublin have showed great hunger all over the place, and for them to come through last weekend and to risk without Con, I think they're a different team with Con in it. I think he gives, but Costello stepped up to the plate last weekend. Scully's playing a lot better. McGuinness, they've introduced, like, whatever you throw at Dessie, like, I mean, I think I have great time for him as a manager. I think he has brought players through. They're not to the same caliber, and they couldn't be to what they've lost, but they have still stayed competitive, and they're on an upward curve throughout this championship. So I think probably of the weekend, you see with Tyrone, you're looking at Tyrone, and you see what they did to Donegal, and then you see what Mayo did to them, and you're saying, Christ, what will happen? Well, but I would back Tyrone to show up, which means then to me, if both teams show up, I think it's an extremely hard team to call to win it. But like we were up and we were doing analysis last day above in RTÉ Jacqui, and I think it's a different kind of game. Like, there's so many areas you could go after and so many areas you could talk about and say. I think it was easier in previous years before the rules came in. You could pick maybe one or two areas and that's it. Whereas now there's more areas you can actually go after. And
I did laugh when you said we could have 6 or 8 pieces of analysis, and Wes said absolutely zero chance of that happening.
I just said that to annoy.
Only the hurlers are allowed 6 to 8 pieces of analysis.
I just said that to annoy Wes because I knew it again. But it is like there's so many areas, like interesting areas. Like it's the next day will be fantastic to watch. But then how teams break other teams out. Will they go direct? Will they not go? Like, you go back to Donegal. Donegal attack, I find it fascinating. Donegal are probably the best running team in the country. They're absolutely outstanding. You've Morgan, you've Rorty, you've Moore, you've Ryan McHugh. They're brilliant. Um, but they won't kick it long then. They won't kick it long. And Gallen was, I was above at the Mayo game. Gallen was just inside. He was making darts. He was making very good runs. He was wide open for the long kick. And when I say long kick, I'm saying 30-yard little punt kick dunked in front of him. And it was never, ever given. So if they seem to have two ways of attacking. They'll run at you, or they will wait for the opposition to get set up, and they'll pick you apart fairly handily there as well, and they're good at it. But if you're a Monaghan and you can counteract, and it's very hard because they're so good at it, that running game, and it's a high octane way to play. But the other teams, Dublin will kick it, Tyrone will kick it. So you have all those areas to go after as well. So I think of all the games of the weekend, funny enough, I think this is an extremely hard one to call.
Yeah. And Rory, funnily enough, you had sent on a piece, Barney Rock, talking about the 2-pointers, which I actually think is very interesting in relation to Kerry as well, who we'll come on to in a minute. Barney Rock suggesting that going for 2-pointers is sort of against Dublin's philosophy. And if you're taking Tomás's point about adapting to the new rules and all that, it does still feel like Dublin and Kerry are playing a different game than what some of the other teams are playing because of their ability to want to chase maybe goals instead of 2-pointers.
Yeah, like the 2-pointer, there's risk attached to it. And I suppose Dublin for years were very much risk averse. It was always sort of low percentage stuff. Like instead of, like they wouldn't, take on shots that were silly. They were always making sure that they work it in. And so it's going to take a little bit of time. I mean, against Cork last week, we only saw one, which it was a huge score, by the way.
Yeah.
It came at a really key time, just on the buzzer at halftime from Bugler. I think 2-pointers. I don't think you need to you're not going to see 9 like we saw in Newry last week. But I think if you can just knock off 1 or 2, I think just 1 or 2, that will be enough. That could be the difference. That's the big thing with the 2-pointer. And I don't think any team can afford to ignore it. But there is a sense. And again, I would not have the first clue, but there is a sense that they're going to be more difficult to kick in Croke Park.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it the wind, Enda? What is it about Croke Park that makes it such a different stadium than all of the rest that they've been playing in over the last number of weeks?
Yeah, certainly the wind tends to certainly be non-consistent, put it like that. So it'll swirl around, and where you're kicking from, it could be quite different than where it's landing, if you know what I mean. If you're kicking into the hill, or particularly if you're kicking into the Davin end, it could be different where you're kicking the ball and where it's landing. The wind could actually be subtly different between those two places, particularly longer range. But I think part of it, in terms of 2-pointers, it depends who you've got in your team. If you have very natural fellas that like to release from long distance and have a good shot from long distance, the simple maths of it and the impact in a game of it means they are an exceptionally useful tool. That you would be daft to, on principle, be deciding, no, we're not going to have any of that. We're going to plan for the other route. Like I think Donegal's evolution this year, where in the National League they pretty much weren't going for 2-pointers at all. Almost, it was always inside. They just cut you open, and yet they're sitting with 3 or 4 of the most natural long range 2-point kickers that any team has. But in the championship, they have definitely started to roll them out at times, and that ability to do both, it is a mindset thing for a team. But if you can get the balance of both, it then opens up the goal chances too. So, and we've seen Clifford, Kerry get a couple of chances and hit them. They have a outsized impact on a game's momentum at certain times, particularly when a team's trying to come back. You get a score and you just look up the board, and it's a sudden difference. It's that jump from a 7-point game to a 5-point game, or from a 5-point game to, it just has such a big impact and puts the ball back in the tee, which puts them under pressure. If you've got the kick out under pressure, it is such a massive impact that I think all teams will learn to use them. I'm not a massive fan. I know why they're in. I would worry that in 5 years' time we could have a generation of boys that just release from distance. Because if you're bottom line, if you're a 50% shot from 40 meters, which plenty of fellas are at this level, well, if you take 10 shots, you miss 5. you've still
Yeah.
scored 10 points.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to have 10 attacks and 100% conversion rate inside the arc to do that. So it's a useful tool. Teams will look to use it. Will it be decisive this weekend? Across all the games, it is certainly going to have an impact.
I think Galway Meath in particular, maybe Tomás, given the way both of those teams play, we might see a lot of it. And just on Enda's point, I did hear Rob Finnerty earlier in the year saying the amount of chances he's getting now versus what he would have had last year. Like he was saying, maybe over the course of a couple of games, you might have 8 shots, whereas now you might have 8 shots in the first half, whereas so the opportunities are coming because of the space as well. And maybe that game more than others, we might actually see it being exploited.
Yeah, and I think it's the rules in general. And when I say rules as in plural, there's not one. My own personal feeling is that the rules combined are actually giving us all these extra. Like you can't pass back to the goalie, which teams are all nearly every single team. And I know they drop off the odd few kickouts, and you've dangerous long kickers of the ball and pattern that sometimes you drop off, and when you don't, it happens like it did again the last day, and they concede a goal from it. But you're going to have one-on-ones. There's no team in the championship that has done extremely well or that can confidently say that their defence is watertight, because every team has been opened, and that's just the nature of it. Galway hit 116 in the first half the last day, and they were 10 points up, and you were talking about 2-pointers, and the first 2 kicks from down in the second half were two-pointers. I was in Killarney, and I know that there's this kind of thing out there that Kerry don't really work on the 2-pointers, but there was a list. I was just looking at the programme at halftime. There was a list of the top 2-point scorers in the country. I don't know, 8 or 9 of them, and 2 Kerry men on that list. So they're doing, and Clifford tapped over 2 more. So you've Shawnee and David Clifford. I think it's.
Are you suggesting Kerry have pulled the wool over people's eyes on something there?
I don't know. Is it I don't know. I think it's players, Enda. I wouldn't say that Kerry are actually tactically working on how to get 2-pointers. I reckon if David has the ball anywhere, he's told, pull the trigger if you're happy, just drive it. And
the next you'll be saying that they're after getting a bout of COVID, Tomás.
Christ, don't mention the war. Come on.
But I do think, like, Galway have a huge physicality around the middle of the field, and then they have 3 forwards. Man, like everybody's talking about Rob Finnerty, Shane Walsh. Shane Walsh is playing extremely well. He's full of confidence. He's taking on players. He's showing a lot of skill. But Matthew Thompson is the fella I've been impressed with. I just think he's been outstanding. I think for a young fella, the maturity he's showing, the decision making he's showing, the skill set that he has, the confidence, the strength he's probably the best young player in the country, and he's shone in the last couple of games. And when you have the likes of him there then, and Shane Walsh and Rob Finnerty, and you have 5 or 6 big fellas careering in from midfield on a run, they are impressive when they're in possession. But then I'd say Galway are not that impressive when they're not, and when they're exposed at the back. When they have numbers back, grand. But the nature of this game, you're not going to have numbers back all the time, and they get highly exposed when ran at the opposite way.
It's just the balance of that team when it fires and is the key. Everybody says absolutely great. I wonder on the other side with Meath, because everybody knows Galway's strengths. Everybody has talked about them all year long. But because Meath have hit 2 teams now, 2 big teams in Dublin and Kerry with sucker punches, I wonder when we're going to get to the stage where people are talking about Meath's strengths and actually giving them credit for being in the position that they are in, which has been sitting nicely in the long grass, I would suggest.
Yeah, sitting nicely. Goes right back to the start of the National League, where if we're talking about people sending out a certain message in their team playing in Otherway, Brennan was putting out the message that the rules were absolutely terrible and his team was absolutely flying. So he hasn't done too badly under the new rules at all. It definitely suits them. They have the range of 2-pointers. They've sharp inside forwards. Their physical size in the middle third, which has always been a Meath trait, and that has worked well for them. My one issue about the 2 defeats, and the one issue for Meath, and I think it goes across this weekend, is Meath's defeat of Dublin. Dublin were flat for me that day. Dublin were flat. Now, Meath still had to perform and still had to get over what was a huge moment to go and put Dublin to the sword, but Dublin were flat. Kerry were flat against Meath. There's no way that was Kerry at full steam, that Meath took them down. Meath still produced a really, really credible performance. But I cannot imagine that Galway will be flat, or if they do, then absolutely Meath will put them to the sword. But and that's why, I think the anticipation ahead of this weekend. I work in Craigavon Hospital. I have never seen as many people keen to talk football, not just about their own sides, but just in general. There is a fizz of excitement about this weekend. I can't wait for it. I can't wait to go down to it. And it's not just one game. And I think we'll see it in the crowds. The crowds won't be going in for their team's game or leaving after their team's game. Everybody wants to see every single one of these games. I have never seen anything like it.
Like Enda, they reckon that there's going to be 150,000 tickets minimum. Like there was 90,000 tickets sold by yesterday. So they're potentially looking at close enough to 2 full houses on 2 days for football quarterfinals.
Amazing.
It's just absolutely phenomenal. And 4 incredible contests. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and what I love about it, so many of the defeats we've seen this year, from Monaghan against Mayo, Galway against Dublin, those Meath results against Kerry and Dublin, so many of the top teams, even when Armagh has got beat in their last match there, they weren't going to be fully out because they were already qualified. The modern rules, it has so many, as Tomás was saying earlier, it has so many nuances to it and so many opportunities for teams to get upper hands. But the biggest thing of all is that if you don't turn up with an absolute top energy,
you get beaten.
You don't win the dirty ball. You don't drive with enough conviction in attack, and you don't work your ass off in terms of defending. And if you're not at it, energy wise, the modern rules just punish you. They tip it right over. This weekend with quarterfinals, every single one of these teams is going to be at it. And when we've seen that earlier this year, say Ulster final games like that, there, top teams meeting and top teams at full energy, it's like nothing we've seen before, which is just brilliant. So in terms of Meath deserve great credit. They are playing well. Do I think they've played a top team at top level and took them down? No, I don't. So it's up to them to bring that against Galway. I'm assuming, yes, Galway obviously can be tired too. They're going to be coming in with that too. But they've been battle hardened, and that's another thing what I love. Every single team coming into this has had the sheen knocked off them. They're all like boxers arriving into the ring, and there's a wee nick here and a wee bruise here. They've all been got at. But you come out stronger the other side of that. You've had those. We've all been there as players. When you get beat, it's a horrible dressing room afterwards. It's horrible training sessions, horrible meetings afterwards, but they're the ones that generally tend to make you. Every team has had that opportunity. I expect Galway to turn up. They have, as we've talked about, their potential is amazing. I expect them to turn up in a fairly ruthless state of tune as well. So you would fancy them against Meath, but if Galway aren't at it, then what level can Meath truly hit when a top team is at it? We'll see.
We'll find out. I think the last game has that intrigue around it, Tomás, for that very reason of that boxer's analogy that Enda is using, that maybe all the teams have been boxed around, but maybe Armagh not quite as much as everybody else, I would suggest. Kerry maybe most of all the ones who actually need to come out fighting this weekend and show everybody what they are ready to bring to this championship if they want to stay in it.
Yeah, I think it's, even though we're all looking forward to 4 brilliant games, I think it's the game of the weekend.
It is.
It's the game of the weekend because people think that Kerry are going to be knocked out, and I think it's always exciting when Kerry. Am I right?
I all think that.
Yes,
Tomás.
you are right, though. You are right, Tomás.
I am, and I think that maddens me in a certain way because I think there's great opportunity in Kerry, and I think
it's like the football classics, Tomás. The football classics.
All the football classics are Kerry losing.
Kerry getting beaten.
Yeah. And then during COVID, they play the football classics, so you're watching Kerry losing for about 3 months.
We had a great time.
But I think it's all set up. I think for once, I think Armagh have been, and rightly so. I not underestimated, but I didn't think they would come back They're extremely well coached. I love watching the way they play. I think they have players to slot in. They have strength and depth. They have pace. They have physicality. They have the maverick side of it with Rian O'Neill back in it again, where there's a bit of unpredictability there. I think that they're very organised on their own kickouts. I think they don't panic when they're down. I think they have a lot of ammunition in their locker. And I think that Kerry's backs to the wall. I think they've lost two midfielders. I think had Kerry a full complement, you would probably be going with Jim O'Connor and Barry Dan O'Sullivan at midfield, allowing Joe O'Connor to go to the half-forward line and playing a midfield role anyway. But that's gone. So you're probably going to start with Joe O'Connor and Sean O'Brien at midfield. You don't know where Paddy Clifford is at, and quite arguably more important to Kerry, because if he doesn't fire, the man inside doesn't fire. So where is he at, and is he going to be as sharp? But I'd back the two Cliffords to show up for Kerry. I don't think they've ever let them down on big days, and I think they will show up. My concern and my worry for Kerry will be, will their middle eight turn up? And when I say middle eight, it's not as easy. I'm talking about your middle eight for our kickouts. I'm talking about our middle eight for their kickouts. I'm talking about our middle eight for the defensive side of the game, and I'm talking about our middle eight attacking. Now, it's a huge ask for our lads, but they just need to be that little bit hungrier, that little bit quicker, to move the ball, to support, to shut Armagh down. And they tend to rise, and this is where I think I'd give Kerry a great chance. Like small little battles, like this year in the league, they were struggling. They had a very up-down league, and they went to the last day against Tyrone, where they could have actually been relegated, and they ended up making the league final. It was so narrow. But I think when they're backs to the wall with Armagh, and it is league, and I know you can't compare either or, they tend to rise, which is something that can be thrown at them. Why didn't they rise for Meath? Which I'd be very disappointed with. Why didn't they rise for Meath? What did they think Meath were going to do against them the last day? That wasn't really acceptable on their own, on Kerry's watch. But I would give them a huge chance. Jacqui, I know it's a big if, and everybody I'm talking to saying, geez, I can't see it happening. I actually can see it happening, but we'd have to see a huge performance from them on the day, and those four key areas. But I think all of that comes from, like, I think our lads inside in the full back line will do a job if the middle eight work hard. I think David Clifford is having an unbelievable season, outstanding every single game. The games that Kerry are playing poor and should have been beaten in, like the Cork game, he still stood out. He still kicked his six. He won't leave you down. He'll get way more attention at the weekend. He'll be pinned down, but I still guarantee you he'll have an impact on the game. It's just the other lads. I think what a key one would be, if Paul Ganey doesn't start, he's your second highest scorer from play. He is vital to them as well. He'd be a huge loss. But backs to the wall, I'd still give Kerry a great chance.
Are there too many ifs and buts about Kerry, Enda, with all of those reasons that Tomás has outlined?
There's certainly a lot. Paddy Clifford and Ganey is massive for me. Those are two huge ifs. I just, I suppose I've seen Kerry before. Tomás mentioned it, back when their backs against the wall, and it's not something people automatically associate with Kerry. Why? Because very rarely do you see them having to come back from difficult places and seasons. They tend to come through much more serenely, and then they can get caught in that there. I felt last year against Armagh, again, Armagh weren't coming in with the reputation that they now have last year. They were a Division 2 side. They were doing rightly. They couldn't get over the line in big games. They'd lost another Ulster final. And I think Kerry's eyes were slightly off the ball. I don't think they were 100% there. And they got caught. Similar to Tyrone beating them in 2021. I don't think Kerry's eyes were fully on Tyrone. In 2023, Kerry repaid Tyrone in spades. Kerry turned up hungry and angry and absolutely destroyed Tyrone in 2023. I think Kerry will be hungry for this Armagh game. We started to see it in Clifford the last day. You just tell his body language and everything the last day against Cavan. He's up for it. the injuries do hamper them without a doubt, but the defeat against Meath is massive. I would be more confident of an Armagh win if Kerry had have serenely got past Meath and came into this match against Armagh. My one, do I think Kerry can win? Absolutely. I think I can't wait for it again. I can't wait for this game. The thing I'm most fascinated about, I suppose, as a coach or a manager or somebody trying to look at the game, Kerry love to kick that ball. Armagh love to find the arc and set up defensively and kill off that ball. Can Armagh's retreat to the arc be fast enough to kill the space around Clifford than the Kerry kick passing game and them finding Clifford? And those moments will be 3, 4, maybe 5.5 each half, and that alone could well decide this game. But I love to see how much Armagh go forward, how aggressively they attack, how open they leave their own defence, how readily they have somebody set up to get back and try to kill off that space, kill off those long passes, because Kerry's most threatening approach play is well signposted. And to be honest, from our point of view, I suppose, up here, it would look a tactic that you can absolutely shut down or that you can do significant damage with if you set yourself up appropriately. And Armagh are so shrewd that I expect Kerry to get that test. So Kerry's plan A is phenomenal. What is their plan B, and how will that hold up, and their injuries? So Jacqui, absolutely plenty of what ifs. I can't wait, but Kerry, when angered and when felt as if a team has got one over them, is a different animal. That, for me, the greatest pride we have thrown is not so much the 0-3 but it's the 0-5, because Kerry came at it. 0-3, you knew they weren't quite at it. 0-5, they were at it, and to take down a Kerry team when they're at it is just about as high a bar as you can try and hit.
Yeah, we need to finish up, but Rory, I am acutely aware that extra time and penalties is highly possible in all of the games, but I think this one, I don't know, there's just something about it that feels that we could be in this kind of territory with them. We obviously had extra time last year. Yeah. It would not shock me if this one went the whole way down to that death as well.
It could, but I'd like to go back to Tomás's earlier point, and I know they have had injuries, and they're injuries to absolutely key players. There's still going to be 15 Kerry jerseys on the field, and I think they have a great chance. I think they have a brilliant chance. I wouldn't underestimate the sting of last year's semi-final. That's surely going to be sticking in their craw somewhere. Like they had that game won. Sometimes people tend to forget that. It was a bit of a boo-boo inside the goal, which allowed Armagh get back into it. Like Kerry were the better team, really, for, I would say, 70-75% of that fixture in normal time. I think.
And Armagh have come back a better team this year, I think.
That's it. That's the thing that people are slightly saying to themselves. Look, Armagh look better, and have Kerry gotten better in the interim? But I think they have a great chance. I really do. I just get that sense. Jacqui, when have Kerry gone into any match as underdogs?
They're loving it.
It's so rare. That is going to suit them. We saw the rallying cry for the supporters to come out. You're going to see, I think you will see a massive show from Kerry on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, look, let's hope we get 4 cracking games. He is, yeah. He is.
I'm going. Well, I'll tell you what. I am going in. I'm going into this. This is going to be from like both games. I'm looking forward to Galway and Meath as well. But both games would be it's a brilliant weekend for football.
He's cheering for Munster football, Tomás. That's what he's doing. Yeah. All right, lads. Listen, we'll leave it there. Have a great weekend. To everybody else, enjoy the matches, and we will be back on Monday to review all of the action and look ahead to our All-Ireland semi-finalists. Enda, Tomás, thanks a million for being with us. We'll talk to you soon.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar.